The first reading is from Hebrews chapter 12, verses 18 to 29, the mountain of fear and the mountain of joy. You have not come to a mountain that could be touched and that is burning with fire, to darkness, gloom, and storm, to a trumpet blast, or to such a voice speaking words that those who heard it begged no further word be spoken to them, because they could not bear what was commanded. If even an animal touches the mountain, it must be stoned to death. The sight was so terrifying that Moses said, I am trembling with fear. But you have come to Mount Zion, to the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem. You have come to thousands upon thousands of angels in joyful assembly, to the church of the firstborn, whose names are written in heaven. You have come to God, the judge of all, to the spirits of the righteous made perfect, to Jesus, the mediator of a new covenant, and to the sprinkled blood that speaks a better word than the blood of Abel. See to it that you do not refuse him who speaks. If they did not escape when they refused him who warns them on earth, how much less will we if we turn away from him who warns us from heaven? At that time his voice shook the earth, but now he has promised, once more I will shake not only the earth but the heavens. The words once more indicate the removing of what can be shaken, that is, created things, so that what cannot be shaken may remain. Therefore, since we are receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken, let us be thankful and so worship God acceptably with reverence and awe, for our God is a consuming fire. And then from Luke chapter 13, verses 10 to 17, Jesus heals a crippled woman on the Sabbath. On a Sabbath, Jesus was teaching in one of the synagogues, and a woman was there who had been crippled by a spirit for 18 years. She was bent over and could not straighten up at all. When Jesus saw her, he called her forward and said to her, "Woman, you are set free from your infirmity." Then he put his hands on her, and immediately she straightened up and praised God. Indignant because Jesus had healed on the Sabbath, the synagogue leader said to the people, "There are 6 days for work, so come and be healed on those days, not on the Sabbath." The Lord answered him, "You hypocrites! Doesn't each of you on the Sabbath untie your ox or donkey from the stall and lead it out to give it water? Then should not this woman, a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan has kept bound for 18 long years, be set free on the Sabbath day from what bound her?" When he said this, all his opponents were humiliated, but the people were delighted with all the wonderful things he was doing.
Feels rather lonely up here now. I think I'm on the top of that mountain being awed by all these wonderful people in front of me. All can take lots of different shapes and feels, can't it? We've got Mount Sinai and Mount Zion. Mount Sinai, can't read my own typing. You missed that one, didn't you? You were all asleep. That's fine. Mount Sinai is seen as something so holy it can't be touched. The NRSV United Updated Version uses the word terrifying, recording that Moses admitted that the sight had made him tremble with fear, all the things that he might have encountered during his life. But that gave a real fear for him. The writer of the letter to the Hebrews has been encouraging recipients of the epistle to keep on going, to travel together, to take strength from the testimony of those who've gone before, to rely on God's word and trust in God's promises. Mount Sinai was hugely important to the development of the faith of the people of God, the handing over of those 10 commandments to define the way in which God's people were to travel, not geographically, but spiritually and compassionately. Like a trainer of an athlete, the structure of the commandments provides the foundation for all those who seek God, all those who seek to follow Christ, us included. The awesomeness of the experience is heightened by the fear that this holy place, if touched, takes rather than gives life. Awe can take our breath away, but can also remind us of the small part we play in the bigger picture. I wonder if you have felt something like this. Maybe it's when you look up at the stars. Does anybody like looking at the stars? Me too. And you put your head back. We were thinking earlier how we could imagine this was the sky as it goes up and up and up, as it appears to, and you tip your head back. If anything like me who's never actually grown up, and right back until you can see the stars going all over you. And there has to be awe and wonder in some of those things. Maybe you would prefer to gaze in wonder at a stunning sunset. Anybody like the sunsets and find something in there? I have one person in the back. You would have loved where we were on holiday a few weeks ago. It was just a campsite. It was a very luxurious holiday, as tents go. But we were facing the sun going down, and it was an agricultural background. So there was a nice, safe sort of hedge, but it was quite high. But you just saw all the colours of that evening change in front of you, and they moved across. And it was stunning, and the silence that you sometimes get as that starts to change. Have you noticed that too? Everything seems to go quiet and almost stop breathing. And the birds stop flying, and their noises stop. And there's just all that colour. And it was amazing. So maybe that's something for you, or maybe it's wonder at the love of God reaching out to each and every person, even us. Individually, God reaches out for us. If this was all there was, though, where would that leave us? A tiny speck of dust in the hugeness of humanity and of all creation? If it was only Mount Sinai, would we still be vulnerable, incredibly vulnerable? Would we be alone in a crowd of others, overwhelmed by the greatness of God's self? But that's not where humanity is left, is it? We're not left at Mount Sinai with that terror type of awe, as opposed to some of the other ways to experience awe. This is truly awesome, that God holds out to us a kingdom that cannot be shaken. The one thing we can be sure of is that kingdom cannot be shaken. In Christ, God presents each one of us with our deepest desire, not in creating an aloof, frightening, demanding sense, but the coming of Christ, walking among us, embracing all, calling all, empowering all, that each one might, coming to Mount Zion, find welcome in the city of the living God. Transformation is the fullness of God's design into the transformational experience of the new covenant in Jesus himself. We heard the words, therefore, since we are receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken, let us show gratitude by which we may offer to God an acceptable worship with reverence and awe. For indeed our God is a consuming fire. The awe is there. But as we come into what Jesus does for us, it's a different type of awe. The reading from Luke's Gospel highlights the inclusivity of Christ as Jesus Teaching in the synagogue heals a woman, both physically and spiritually. So I'm going to invite you to come into the scene with me, and let's put ourselves there together. We're standing in the synagogue on the Sabbath. The scroll has been opened, read, and carefully returned to its place. Now Jesus is explaining the meaning of the reading, and most people are listening very carefully. For the leader of the synagogue is frowning and looks like he's just waiting for his opportunity to jump in. He can't really do that, though, because he's noticing that everyone seems to be listening a little more intently than he's ever known before. Jesus is bringing the words of the reading to life. And that's when the woman comes in. She's bent over double and can't stand up straight. Jesus could have spoken to her, but he doesn't use words. He stops using words. And what he does next is a different kind of teaching, a living parable, a life-changing action with lessons for the people present and for us. There is so much more to awe than fear. Mount Sinai was just the beginning, the direct engagement of God with God's people. Filling people with fear leads to newly created boundaries, not to destroy, but to enable the people of God to travel together, to worship together, to grow together. That's what God's engagement with us does, to enable us to be God's people, to travel alongside each other, to learn from each other. The miraculous healing in the synagogue speaks for itself of the depth of God's love for God's people, where commandments are not administrative, but the framework for the flourishing of all. It certainly must have made those present in the synagogue think again as the crowd rejoiced in joy, awe, and wonder at Jesus' active teaching. Awe, powerful, frightening sometimes, breathtaking, transformational, wonder, life-giving. Some people are really good at noticing the world around them. I don't think I'm one of those people. Archaeologists can see one stone in a whole load of other stones and realise that it's a shaped flint. To me, it would be just another stone, and I wouldn't have a clue. And then it's the shepherds. We know what shepherds can do, don't we? They're supposed to be, apparently, they can identify any of their sheep, even at a distance, and know which one is which. And Jesus, on this occasion, spotted a woman who was forced into insignificance and isolation by all that is happening to her. A God's eye view reaches out to people whose needs push them to the margins, restricting life choices. God's awesome orientation to life in all its fullness means that God longs to see people flourish. Readiness to notice and make a difference characterizes Jesus, and perhaps it should characterize us too. So where and in what ways is the same awe-inspiring focus present in our own local communities? Where could we be taking care to notice those whose heads are bowed low, so that we can support them in finding ways to look up to see the awesomeness of God, the love of God, the power of God in their own lives? In our gospel reading, we saw Jesus questioning priorities and changing lives. It was as if he were inviting us to a universal party, such as that described in Hebrews. I'll read those words again. But you have come to Mount Zion and to the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, and to innumerable angels in festal gathering, and to the assembly of the firstborn who are enrolled in heaven, and to God, the judge of all, and to the spirits of the righteous made perfect, and to Jesus, the mediator of a new covenant, and to the sprinkled blood that speaks a better word than the blood of Abel. That is such a lot with which God blesses us. The heavenly city is one where we can worship without fear, because Jesus came and showed us the way, gave us the wonder of God, gave the wonder of God a human face. Unlike Mount Sinai, the untouchable mountain to which Hebrews 12 refers, Jesus can be approached with confidence. Although there was resentment and hardness of heart among those who rejected Jesus, there was rejoicing among those who saw and accepted him. So 2 very different mountains, 2 encouragements, 2 senses of awe, of joy, of challenge, of the call of Christ to a new covenant of love, of transformation, of hope, and of celebration. Now, isn't that something that we should be saying is awesome? I'm going to leave you with those thoughts to take away, to explore where you find that sense of awe. See if each one of us can be a little bit more aware of it in the week ahead. And to remember the 2 mountains, the differences between them, but knowing they're all part of God's journey with God's people to us today, and especially remembering that second one of the freedom of being a disciple of Jesus, to be able to walk with him, to work with him, to share with him, and to share together the awe of God, not just inside our building, but outside it too.